Hello, my name is Drexium, and today I will be showcasing a game against Yism in erekir eviction. Here we have my typical start. You can see there's nothing really interesting usually in the starting. Here I made a small blunder of forgetting to manually load the silicon to get the first cell out sooner. There's also a random copper player in this lobby. They don't really come into play though. Here you can see me making sure to route my ducks so that they go past, and you can see that I've maybe lost 10 seconds on my first cell. This doesn't end up affecting the result of the game, but if it was a fist fight, I probably would have lost because of that. I waste a lot of time right here, or a lot of attention, trying to route ducts and conduits to try to get these spores fully loaded. You can see that I'm also I should manual mine here. That's another error that's very common for me to make. I frequently forget to manual line. You can see me trying to be efficient by deleting the conduit or the power node, but then forgetting to connect those, wasting around 20 beryllium, which it doesn't come into play since I'd already had the boards set up. But if those were my first boards, for example, that might have cost me a good 5 seconds. Graph wars made a small error there, and probably should have used a different schematic for this one. And here my routing is really poorly done. I noticed a large tungsten patch right there. Instantly go for the drill, the impact drill. See the two vents, perfect ratios for the start I like to do. And yeah, that's basically my traditional start. Going into the oxide now. I like to use this 2x oxide schematic because it's one of the few schematics I designed myself. Although I'm sure there's like a few hundred other similar versions of it. This is the main reason I wanted to make sure I got that extra bore connected up, so that I'd still have 9 boosted bores going into the core, since it's around as much as I usually need. Here you can see that random copper just sitting there, random scrap. Ism and I both check them up at the same time. He realizes that this is going to be a longer game, and he actually hasn't played one of these in quite a while, so he actually gets nervous from this. Here I make a small error of sending the cells there. I really shouldn't be doing that, because it turns out, well, my original planning was to take a hex over there so that this scrap player wouldn't be too big of a nuisance, since I'd still have that hex over there for eco and stuff. Turns out the scrap player just ends up sitting out of the game, which is very appreciative of him. It's always nice when me and a fellow Pristinian player is allowed to 1v1. This is where he reveals that he hasn't had a longer style of game in a while. Only been playing fist fights recently. Probably not a good sign for him. This is where I kind of realized my mistake. And then make a similar one again. Here, really wasting a lot of time. I should have done that oxide way earlier. Should have been setting up the large bores. This is me trying to find some good tungsten. I really just can't see any. So I decided I'm just gonna have to sack it up and go for this. To save tungsten, I use routers instead. I could have used a router there actually, but didn't realize it at the time. There we have the hydrogen pipe. has to go quite a while. That's me double checking to make sure my pipe is fixed, as it's cost me games in the past. There's a large tungsten bores going up. Still need to oxide boost them though. I can see my power's dropping. Go check on the second hack, see that I captured it. See that the scraps, try and be annoying. And this is where he reveals he's just going to sit this one out. This is me failing to type / die for a couple seconds. I would rather him to / die, since it would mean less pressure on me. I don't have to worry about him coming in sniping my eco. He says he won't, he's just gonna sit there. I don't like this. It's like very nerve-wracking for me now, because it means I have to constantly worry about this player and hope he doesn't affect the game in any way, which he technically already has. See, this sand schematic's gonna not work or be a painter out. Switch to a different one on a different wall. That probably cost me a few seconds. As you'll probably notice, a lot of my routing is where I lose a lot of seconds in games. Is something I've really got to work on in future games, especially when playing people such as Sire, who's very fast and aggressive. That was a major blunder right there. I think that's connected to the oxide. I mean the ozone. I think that oxide's connected. It isn't. The electrolyzer's facing the wrong way for that. That's me just having an OCD moment. Then I still think it's connected. I realize that forum's not gonna work, so I go over to this forum. Bore schematic. Still haven't realized that the oxide isn't connected. Me checking to make sure the bores are gonna work. Power nodes are gonna reach. Still haven't realized. Just some funky setup there to do the routing. Got that forum done now though. From here I go straight into carbide after taking the next hex. While doing that, I make some additional power, make the first power plant, since I can see that my power is dead, and if my power dies, all my buildings decrease efficiency, so it's just not good to keep the power dead. So make the extra oxide in power plant, then want the extra beryllium production, which you'll see Yism forgets to do later on, and that costs him time. Now this game was quite a long one, 47 minutes overall. It was a grueling fight, to be honest. For me, this was straight after a exhausting day, so I wasn't really playing my best. Yism, I think, was very late at night for him, as that's the time we can usually play together. Carbide. Usually I should have this up by before 10 minutes, since I need pyros very quickly, because that's just the most efficient source of power. I do use CCCs quite a lot. I used to be completely reliant on them, but pyros are just so much faster. This is me being dumb. Like, I realized that wouldn't work because of the core being too close, but I still thought about it for like so long, and was like, nah, that probably cost me a good few seconds. This bore placement is garbage. Really had to do some funky stuff here to fix that. What I love about this carbide schematic though is you can put the graphite into either side, and it will still work due to how the carbide is shaped. It's got the inbuilt tungsten, which I find quite nice. Want to connect more power, and this is where I make a major blunder. By connecting it to its own network, I forget that I've done that since it's powered. So you'll notice this come into play later on. From here I usually go for my locus. There it is. Realize I want more hydrogen. So decide to just do some funky ductwork here. This took me a good few seconds that should have been spent setting up routing for the locus factory. And even after all that, I still made a small mistake there. I didn't rotate the pipe correctly. That cost me some extra time. Then putting in the hydrogen, since it uses external hydrogen. That's one of my favorite things about the schematic. Since I used so many CCCs early on, really easy to get the external hydrogen for it. 11 minutes in now. I'm still not in, still no unit micro really needed yet. Although we will get to that later on in the game. The later parts were quite mentally draining. Just due to the nature of how Yuzum plays. He plays very defensive at times. It's very annoying to play against since he just turtles and turtles and turtles. And just makes surge, makes the flicks, and forces you to struggle to break through his forts. This is where the networks being split really comes into play. Because says my power's at 600 in my main network, yet whenever I connect things here, it doesn't seem to affect the power. So that has me worried. I want to do an eruption drill there, then realize I can't. Still micro, decide to add the tungsten here. Router chaining because it's quicker than doing ducts. Yuzum and this guy having a discussion. This is a really big blunder on Yuzum's part. He's probably wasted nearly a full minute chatting. Not good usually to do this. Usually for the first 15 minutes of the game, neither of us will send a single message. This is me realizing I'm ahead, stating it in chat, going for the second 3x locus. I like to have two to outproduce most people, since everyone else on the server usually does fine with a 4x or a 3x, usually. So by going for the 6x all up, I end up with more locus production, and that means that later on in the game, I am better equipped for longer term battles. What the problem with this build order specifically though is I don't get the locus factory up until later. Yuzum, you'll see, does the locus before the carbide. I do the locus after the carbide, and this means that he has a lot more locuses built up. And also helped influence my decision to do the second 3x locus, since I have to catch up to the amount he's built up, since he's got 4x all up, 1 in the starting hex, and then a 3x elsewhere. Fairly standard for Yuzum. Here I'm really struggling to do the duct work and conduit work, since it's just such a cramped area doing all the inputs on one side of the schematic and also close to it really is difficult at times. here I have a spaghetti moment, and have to try to work out how to get the bridge around without having beryllium get into it. Come up with the idea to just do that, so that I don't have to make a second bridge and allow the beryllium into the line. I realize Yism has so many more locuses than me. Check his core, he got his carbide up later, so I'll have my pyros first. I see he's already going for the Cleroy. The current meta being Cleroy Amphicus sucks, honestly, but nothing we can do about that, so as you'll see throughout this match, it really shows off how stupid the current meta is. My micro wasn't the best this game. This area in particular, I really messed up on. I made a couple mistakes here with power node connections, since usually I like to wait until the schematic's finished, or my building's finished, and then do power nodes. But since I'm really trying to go fast, I was trying to do all the power nodes manually. And when I'm thinking I'm doing all the power nodes manually, I tend to make a lot of mistakes by forgetting things. Yuzum realizes he didn't make enough beryllium and graphite production. The reason he needed so much graphite production is due to the early Murrow. Each Murrow factory using 300 graphite, when you've only got 3 boosted bores, is a lot. I realize Yuzum has 34 locuses to my 18. This worries me. If he attacked right now, he'd win. All he has to do is attack. Except typical Yizum, playing passive, never attacking until he is provoked. Once he's provoked, he starts attacking, but it's usually too late since his macro falls off later game. He's not as fast at connecting factories as most other players at our level. His early game, though, is very scary a lot of the time. So, I'm very happy that this wasn't a fist fight at this point. I realise that he's far behind at this point, since he still hasn't set up his Murrow due to being delayed by the lack of beryllium graphite. Now I realise this is where I realise I've had a skill issue with the beam node connections, and my schematics has a skill issue there. When I copied it, I kind of messed up the copy, and still have yet to go and fix that. I see some's got his 3x Cleroy. This is another issue with my networks being connected. I've made the pyros. I know I've made the pyros, I can see that they're working, but my network is still on low power. For those not aware, I am using foos client to be able to see a lot of this stuff. It's frowned upon mainly for the use of autofill. It's legal in Erica. I use it just for convenience sake. Since a lot of the time counting units is very time consuming and not very fun, and I like to be able to know where my opponent is at. 41 locus to 43 locus, I realize my mass is nearly as big as his, so I can start actually playing aggressive since I'm outproducing him. I've also got my Amphicus factory already under construction, with some funky placement being so far away from the Cleroy. Skill issued these pipes here. Should have gone a tile higher. Then adding the slag, because slag heaters are just so power efficient. Back in the day, I used to only use CCCs. I never made carbide for pyros. I realize that that one pyre is not getting enough of resources for some reason. I'm not sure why. And then comes a more macro intensive part of the game. Just both of us sitting, me doing some light micro, just trying to provoke him a little, see if I can make him do anything stupid, as he's prone to doing. A lot of the time, he always just plays so aggressive, and all of a sudden you provoke him, he starts getting really aggressive. But yeah, this is me realizing I'm a lot farther ahead than I initially thought. Since I've already got my Amphicus production pretty much set up. He's still building the factory, he still has to do a lot of the input work. I'm just connecting point A to point B at this point. Yeah, he's realised I'm just prodding him a little, trying to provoke him. I go for a second Claroi. I usually like to go for 2 Claroi factories, because Claroi currently are Tector's best counter, and Tector currently counter Amphicus, and if I want to go for a second 4x Amphicus, I need the Claroi, except in this case, I had a major skill issue with placing that cost me 30 seconds or so. And schematic, me being touchy with the ozone and always wanting there to be a blockage to it, that's just the way that I am. I realise my mass is a lot bigger than his, and his is more spread out. I also realise I'm going to have the first Amphicus, and I've already got more locust than him, and we've got equal res production. All of this combined means I'm ahead, except for that one slag pipe that is outputting slag into the void. That is costing me some nitrogen into my Amphicus factory, slightly decreasing its efficiency. I don't realize this until I see some of the electrolyzers stuttering later on. And that might have cost me a quarter of an Amphicus or so, maybe even more. Amphicus are very nice for taking hexes, and they're currently like the best offensive and defensive unit, just due to 100 missiles in the sky really blocks up the game, and it's hard for turrets to actually hit the Amphicus. Like 50 Amphicus versus an Afflict, the Amphicus don't even really take damage a lot of the time. Me forgetting to add a router there. I actually see that I've made that mistake, but don't fix it yet. And just keep adding the inputs. You really should be doing the making sure the tungsten is flowing first, and then putting the pipe in place. I want to take extra space. I need to find a space for my second 4x Amphicus. I decide to go down there. Pull some locusts away, go for that. I think about maybe placing it there. I go to place it and realize that's the wrong hex. I wanted to place it the hex below. In this game there was no air units, which I am very grateful for. Ism is known for having paranoia around air units, so he would have been fine. I, on the other hand, commonly suffer to them since I have a bad habit of never making defenses. Here I switch around the Clary inputs. Still not getting enough slag. I'm not really sure why. I realize I didn't connect these ones since I had vents there, so I assumed I already had. That's a really common mistake I make. Something I definitely need to work on. I realize there's no graphite in that hex. I realize Yism's also making a Tector. Tector are currently Amphicus's best counter, so it's understandable for him to go for it, seeing as I'm making the Amphicus. It just turns out that one Tector factory isn't really worth 4 Amphicus factories, and that's is kind of shown in this game. I want to do Nitro Boosted for him to save space. I realize that I'll be using too much hydrogen here, so add the second electrolyzer, use a router to let it on, ductwork and beam node work. No graphite in that hex means I'm going to have to do the silicon elsewhere. Doing some more unit micro here. I realize Ism's moving around there, so I'm just going to move to Clary in. So this is not really a unit I need for attacking at the moment, since realistically I will not be able to get them close enough to a Tector due to his Amphicus. If he was to diverge the Tectors though, Clary would definitely be the best counter for them. Because the point defense of the Clary is very effective versus Tector. Although we do not get to showcase this in that game. I realize those locusts are isolated, so I just aim to pick them off. I don't want to move my other units in yet though. I see he's got that one X-Tector up. He's got 77 locusts, 118 locusts for me. I'm feeling confident now. I feel like I should go for the aggressive play, and this is where Yism starts to do the thing that really annoys me. He starts to make forts. Forts are expensive to break, and when you combine them with Amphicus, very expensive to break. You'll see me lose my entire army multiple times in this game, just crashing it against his forts, which is why I felt the need to make so much more Amphicus production than what I usually do. Usually I'm fine with a 4x Amphicus, but in this game I decided to go for 8x since it's what I was forced to do against a game versus Sire recently, Sire being the current best player. Here I experienced a major skill issue with setting up that silicon. I sent more Claro down there to just help deal with it. Ism is really struggling here. He's sacking so many locusts, and that really hurts him later on. Even in the late game, every unit can matter, which is why I put so much time and effort into sniping each locust, since those locusts are by far his best asset. When it comes to just tanking the Amphicus missiles and giving his Amphicus an actual chance to fire. This really took me just so long to get working. Way longer than it should have. I've got a habit of just going around every event I see, rarely blocking them up. Didn't really need to do this late into the game, but it's just the way I am. Something I definitely need to fix. Connect those, but I still haven't connected the hydrogen yet is the issue. To that one war, so that silicon will not be running at 100%. Just moving the final amount of Claro down there. My Claro production stopped now though. And this is where I see Yism has surge. And once Yism has surge, he has a flex, and once he has a flex, he has forwards. and forts are very frustrating to break, especially after a very long day. It's like very exhausting playing eviction at times, especially against players like Ism and Sire, because the games require so much concentration. You always have to be focused. Every second things are happening, and my PC kind of struggles here. As you see there, you can see a little bit of units just jumping around. Realize it's not really getting enough silicon. Try to find the skill issue I've had there. Find it. Just a couple of routers fixes it. Now it's getting plenty of silicon. Although my power was kind of low. This doesn't come into play at all. I don't have to worry about this until way later on. I'd really love to snipe that Titan before it gets built, but I don't make it since of the build tower. So I decided to just retreat out of that hex. Checking the Titan's range. This is me just saying that it's like a meat grinder style game. These ones you can usually last for an hour or so. I'm very lucky I managed to find a way to break through early on. Usum's like up to you, despite him being the one making forts. This is me just calling him a turtle, as that's all he does. He makes surge instead of units, and that costs him later on. He doesn't have as much unit production as me. He struggles, but instead he can play very defensive, and it's not as fun to play against a defensive player. It's a lot more fun to play aggressive, all-out attacks, and not have Titans and flicks bothering your units. That's just my style of gameplay. I'm not really a big fan of Titans and flicks. They kind of break the balance, I feel like, or just ruin the gameplay in general for me. But that's just a me thing. Everyone else on the server seems to love them. I think my Amphicus blob is a lot larger than his, so I'm just trying to do some small snipes, trying to thin his army down, because if I can get a large enough locust blob, I can just cruise in. Like, there's nothing you can really do against a few hundred locusts, when you don't have that many locusts yourself, because they just keep coming and coming and coming, and they don't stop, and they just keep pushing through and through your defenses. This is a major hit for him, losing probably 30-40 locusts. With very minimal effort on my part. Just doing some light micro. I know I'm outproducing him in terms of units, so I know this game should be one for me. But once again, it's Usum. Games can still last hours from this point. Me realizing that if I use my locust blob, I can probably cause some damage. So I try to do a pincer attack, and try to use the locusts to basically cause a distraction, while I let my Amphicus do so much damage. And you see here, like, sure, he's stopping all the locusts, but he has nothing, but all of his units distracted, killing them. That Tector gets instantly melted. One Tector's worth around 4 Amphicus when used with good micro. I'm up to 55 Amphicus here. I'm feeling really confident. Ask if it's a GG. I'm like exhausted by this point. Since paying attention to such a large army and Amphicus micro in general can be very exhausting at times. I feel like I should be able to push into this hex. But then I see an afflict further up and kind of get scared. I move a lot of units back to stop any kind of counterplay, as that's a blunder I've made against Sire in the past. And here that afflict kind of directs. This really reminds me of a game versus Sire I had once. It was probably one of my more fun games. Definitely. This really hurt me though. This is me getting mad at him for making me talk. It was completely unintentional on his behalf. This is just me just getting pissed for no reason, really. Just kind of joking around since game's pretty much over already. He has like no chance of coming back now at this point. I really hope to get that Tector, since I realise I'm not going to go for it. Just going to try to snipe some extra Amphicus, and instead have to re-rally all my units. He's down to just 9 Amphicus. I have 2 times his Amphicus production. He's down to 6 Locus. Looking at the map, I have more space pretty much than him, and I've got 5-6 times his army power. It's just the forts are very annoying to deal with, so it costs a lot of units. Usum also has a really bad habit of just leaving units scattered randomly around his base. As you saw earlier with his locuses, he had 3 times my locuses, yet they were so spread out that my locust blob was larger than any of his. This is me just yelling at him for being a turtle. I really hate it. It's just not a gameplay I enjoy a lot of the time. It's definitely one of my biggest gripes with Usum's style of gameplay at the moment. I realise that locusts are going to take way too long to maneuver around there, since I'd have to manually control them due to how their AI pathfinding works. They always want to take the shortest route, which isn't necessarily the bestest route. It's just me trying to clean them up, just trying to take out what I can, taking off free units. Just patiently waiting, not really playing my best anymore because I'm kind of exhausted. But yeah, definitely this game showcases the power of the Amphicus, especially in blobs, and why locuses are so important. If it wasn't for the 170 or something locuses I had stood up, I would not have been able to break into that hex and take out his army. And the reason I want to take out his army so bad is because I knew that if I can just annihilate his army and sacrifice mine, I'm producing 1.5 times the military, maybe more, that he is. So I'll just end up winning if I can take out so much of his army. I realise that this is doing damage to the Amphicus, so I try to go in, because I can see that the heal is triggering. But then remember the Titan and retreat. And this is where the more mentally exhausting part can really set in. When you're just dealing with like such a easy win. Like there's no way I can lose this. Usum would need to have had avert production and go for some crazy core snipes to have won this. Usually I'd always make averts. But not in this game, which is probably one of my favourite things about this game. It did not have air units. Non-air unit gains are a lot better for me than anyone else. I really struggle with air units. So yeah, really made the game easier not having to deal with any pressure from those, since it allows me to spend more time doing micro. And more time doing micro means better micro, better unit trades. I realize he's going to go for the core with those Tector, so I just go for the kill on the Tector, but then his Amphicus are just ruining mine. Except I realize I've got my army coming in, I can just target the Tector. I misclick here. I don't know, it wasn't there. But later on, or during my micro, I make a common mistake of left clicking when I should be right clicking. To separate units by type. I really want to get this Afflict dead. If I can get that Afflict dead, I'll feel a lot more comfortable attacking the Hex, but I don't get it. That sucks. Like, not getting that Afflict hurts a lot, so I'm just trying to pull back here. Regroup, and this is why I hate isn't being a turtle so much, because it's just annoying to play against, and I get really impatient really quickly. I really would have loved to get that Tector dead, but instead I just end up losing the trade. This is me just regrouping, and just preparing for an assault. I realize my power is running at like not stable, it jumps up and down a lot. So I just decide to add a second set of pyros. I really do not need to do this, especially during such an extensive part of unit micro. But I realize that he has no real way to push into an Amphicus and Locust blob, since he'd have to Titan creep, and if he tries to Titan creep, it slows him down a lot. It takes a lot of time to set up, especially if you're not using a build tower. So I figure you won't try that, and I have enough time to set up these pyros, which I do, luckily. If he had realized I was doing this and counterattacked at this moment, or I guess he was trying to and just failed. If he'd gone for the Titan though, he probably could have caused a lot more trouble. Here, I want to do some flanking with this Clero and a single Amphicus. The single Amphicus is to allow me to take cores without losing units, and the Clero is because they can just walk over walls, allowing me to push them into fortified hexes easier, and get to certain hexes faster. Isma's just making another Afflict here. This is very annoying for me. I really should be up there building heal stations. I would have much rather have a more high macro game where it's larger armies, more unit production, instead of having to deal with these just annoying turret spam. That's the kind of gameplay I prefer. More micro intensive, and less just throwing a tide against a rock. He's sending units to take out this side attack force, and I realize he's also just overextending with these Amphicus here. Except not really any way for me to punish him because of the Afflict. I realize I'm not going to actually be able to destroy that Tector, which sucks. These locusts can be easily killed, and I don't lose a single unit from that trade. That's always really lucky. I realize this is where I start making the mistake of left clicking instead of right clicking. Left click deselects that unit, right click selects only that unit. So really not a good mistake to make. He looks away for 1 second to connect to Aurelium after setting an Amphicus. You want to do your input setup when your units are all in a blob together. I don't understand why he's like upset here. It's like you sent in the units and look away. That really is just not a smart move. And after that, it's pretty much GG. I just have to clean up. If I can take this hex, the rest will fall. I'm doing the same thing I did to take the previous fortified hex. And just, that's me doing left click instead of right click again. Or right click instead of left click in that case. I want to try to take out that afflict as soon as possible. And just send in the locusts straight for the core. Isn't really could have moved Tectors in front of that to stop that. Probably could have done other things. He calls the GG, and I decide to just end the recording here. And yeah, this is going to be the first YouTube video, so I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been erekir eviction. I am Drexium, and yeah.